Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Derek and Eric here.
How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing well. Let's jump right in, Eric, because we've got a lot of stories to cover. Yeah. And, of course, who do we always lead with? Kanye West.
Kanye.
Still in the wake of the controversy over his White Lives Matter shirt, you might think he would backpedal, right? That's Kanye's style.
Yeah.
No. He leans into the controversy. He is doubling down on the White Lives Matter shirt. On Wednesday, he posted a photo to his Instagram of a black sweatshirt with the White Lives Matter written on it. And he wrote, "Here's my latest response when people ask me why I made a tee that says White Lives Matter. They do." So he is saying, look, this is a very simple, he is now sort of acknowledging that it's a political statement of sorts. It's not just
this is not, people are trying to defend it saying, oh, he's making a statement about this. No, it's what you see is what you get.
Yeah, like. I mean, I was even doing somersaults to try to understand what his rationale was, why he didn't do a All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter or something that was currently in the conversation, but went directly for White Lives Matter to sort of have the polarizing issue of Black Lives Matter versus White Lives Matter. And he's saying, look, this is what I'm intending to say. And he also wrote that black academics are on my side. I hate expressions like this because what does it mean? I'm sure you could find a black academic who supports this notion, but it's sort of empty. There are people who are
anybody
all
to
sides
agree
of
with
issues.
Anything.
Exactly. It doesn't mean anything to say academics are on my side. I don't think the lion's share of academics are on your side. I think if you spoke to most people, they would say this is needlessly provocative.
And even if his original point was he was trying to call out, the people in the Black Lives Matter, the official organization, there's investigations into misappropriation of funds and things, and that's a legitimate thing to point out. But that's not what he did.
It's just not.
He said White Lives Matter. And I've seen this whole debate online, when people say this is a dangerous thing and this is, hurtful rhetoric. The response is often like, why? Because white people don't matter?
Right.
That's not...
It's a red herring. It's not responsive to the idea.
Because Kanye is not officially selling these shirts yet. There are some knockoffs going on eBay, which also, interestingly, the eBay listings can say like Kanye Lives Matter shirt. They don't say White Lives because that would probably get flagged on eBay.
Interesting. Yes. As sort of white supremacy garb.
So that's the thing. And Kanye, ask yourself, Kanye, if people buy this sweatshirt, if you sold it and wore it, who do you think's buying it and why do you think they're wearing it?
That's the question. And as an artist, you need to be aware of your artistic statement. Once it's out in the world, could be co-opted, could be worn by different people that you're not intending the message to be taken in a certain way. You lose control. And he's commercializing this sentiment. Obviously raised a lot of awareness because he's a huge sort of platform that he speaks from. And I don't think he thought through. That's the problem with Kanye. There's a lot of impulsiveness to Kanye. Yes. And I think while it's interesting for artists to sort of like challenge you and make you think about things in a different way, I don't think he was being thoughtful. If you're going to be sort of provocative, you have to think about what is the reception of this message going to be? Who's going to wear it? Are the right type of people laughing? I remember when Dave Chappelle walked away from his show, he said, during filming one of my segments, I was uncomfortable with the way people were laughing at my joke. That dawned on him.
It was becoming something he couldn't control, and it was not something he wanted to be a part of.
That's right. And so he walked away. It was very controversial, but at least it was thoughtful. It was. I didn't like where this was going, where my message was being taken. I don't think Kanye cares, and if he does know that how it will be sort of co-opted or sort of twisted, then he's maybe like malevolent. It's strange. I don't know what to make of Kanye West anymore because this is beyond art. This is now political provocation without any meaning.
and it's also, I think, making some assumptions about some people. If somebody had this shirt and say they were a white supremacist or were a white power kind of person, that almost, I feel like, gives them a shield. Like, well, how can I be racist because this is Kanye's shirt?
Right.
It's like that black friend kind of thing. I can do and say what I want because this is a black guy. Obviously, that's a blanket for everything.
Yeah, and to your earlier point of if he's criticizing the organization, I would have been, I would have rolled my eyes a little bit. But if he had a shirt that said Black Lives Matter, Corp is a scam, okay, you want to sort of push that narrative. I get it. There's substance to it, potentially, that the people who ran the organization did so irresponsibly and it undermined the movement. I get that. But just splashing White Lives Matter and throwing it out to the world as Kanye West, I think is reckless. I think that's what people are starting to see is and they roll their eyes and they tune him out at this point.
You do, because, and then also when he complains about Kim, he's like, I don't have any say in my children because I'm a black man. What is it? Which way are we going here?
Yes, exactly. You got to pick a lane, and he really doesn't. And I find this to be kind of a turning point for how I receive Kanye West. Now I just think of him as a pure troll, and the artistry and the sort of meaningfulness of his life is fading. It's receding because we're further and further away of the genius who dropped all of those albums and one of the most important voices, and we're left with this like shell who is just kind of cringy at this point.
Yeah, people talk about separating the art from the artist. Can you still enjoy the music? And you can. And what Kanye, nothing he's done is, so egregious that it's like, oh, I can't listen to his music.
Right.
But as his music becomes more of these kind of statements, you don't want to listen to it as much.
Yeah,
it's like,
I agree. It's sort of weighted now with it's weighted by who he is and who he's become in sort of the public narrative, and I find it distressing. But anyway, let's move on to the other half of the Kanye saga. Is always a Kardashian.
This is not actually about Kanye, but you can't mention him without the Kardashians. Apparently, Kourtney Kardashian was on the Not Skinny Not Fat podcast, and she says that she had an issue when she and Travis Barker got engaged, the way it was presented on the show, because it was framed around Scott Disick's reaction.
Sure.
And not her actual engagement.
And why was it framed that way? Because reality television is built around conflict, not around fairy tales. She knows this. Come on, go on.
Because she said, speaking of the fairy tale, she's like, I think it just bothered me because I felt like this is my fairy tale. And I was like, why can't we show the happy ending? Why do we have to focus on this? She says she understands, the messy drama is what the show is about. It's why people watch it.
Yes.
And it's true, because when we knew they got engaged, the first thing everybody thought about is, oh, how's Scott going to take this?
Yes.
Because we know he already had complained about her and Travis being so public with their PDA and everything. Because otherwise, it's just an engagement.
Yes.
And Travis Barker, the thing is, he's such a good guy, such a nice guy, has always been that. That's not as interesting to people.
Of course not.
It's like,
even though he's a celebrity and it's kind of neat that he's from this emo rock band of the 90s and he's now with a Kardashian, there are neat elements to it, but not very interesting ones ultimately, because they get along.
Yeah, there's not a story there. Once we knew they were dating, and Kourtney is kind of the nicest or least dramatic of the family, I think. And so you have the nice Kardashian and the nice rock guy had a nice relationship and got engaged. Like, good for them.
Where's the sparks?
But you don't want to watch a show about it.
You don't want to watch a show. And part of what bothers me about this podcast is her sort of feigning naivete about what reality television is, even though they're one of the progenitors of modern reality television. The whole point of it is rubbernecking a car crash, right? The point of reality television that they crystallize is that we like to watch people in conflict, and that is why the Real Housewives exist. That is what reality television is. I guess the Osbournes sort of started that. You wanted to see the family fighting.
You
didn't want to see
the
them going to
table flipping
Disneyland.
and the wine glass throwing. That's why people watch these shows.
And she's to the credit of the podcaster, the host. They ask her, they're like, "Well, you're an executive producer of the show. Don't you give notes?" And she says, "Yes, I gave notes on these segments, but they weren't taken." It's not that they weren't taken. It's that you kind of knew. You sort of wanted to maybe make a gesture towards, like, maybe we could highlight some of the pleasant aspects of Travis and I's relationship, but they're trying to get a show. They're trying to get ratings, and the ratings are where the conflict is.
Yeah, if you're the producer or the editor of that show, and you have dramatic shots of Scott Disick upset about this, or you have Kourtney picking out ivory or eggshell napkins for the wedding, which one are you going to go with?
Of course, and look,
she knows that.
She knows that. That's what it's a plea for candor. Come on, Kourtney, and also they are fabulously wealthy at this point. If they don't want to have their lives on display and all the messiness and the drama of their lives, they don't need to. They've got plenty of money. She can live her fairy tale completely out of the public eye. But if you want to make a television show for Hulu that wants eyeballs, you're gonna have to include Scott Disick not really being keen on you with Travis.
Otherwise, like you said, just run your businesses and stop doing a show.
Totally, they could totally do that. They could,
but they're not going to.
But they're not going to, because they are part of the attention economy, and to gain attention, you need conflict. That is sort of a core tenet of reality television. So when I listen to this stuff, I just my eyes are so far behind my head that I can't unroll them at times, and I have to sort of wake up and say.
But the bottom line, always, every time we do a story like this, they still win, because
they win.
We're still here talking about how she's unhappy with how it was portrayed.
Yeah. Look at what Kanye has to do for us to pay attention to him. He's got to put a White Lives Matter shirt. All she has to do is go on a podcast and say, "Oh, I didn't want
they didn't show my fairy tale.
They didn't show my engagement." I mean, it's remarkable how much we still care deeply about this family. Let's move on to this is an interesting story. So the fan that ran out on the field, or not a fan, he was an activist.
He was an activist.
An activist ran on a football field during Monday Night Football, one of the most televised events every week in football. And he had a pink spray can full of smoke.
It was like pink smoke was coming out.
Yes.
He was shirtless and ran through. And some of the Rams players knocked him down.
Bobby Wagner.
and Tack McKinley. So this guy is now filing a police report that it was very clearly assault. It is, but for one, we should, because people hear this and they think, oh, these giant football players in their gear tackled this shirtless guy.
That's right.
They didn't tackle him.
No,
when you
they
see the
dragged him
video,
to the ground.
They pushed him down.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they didn't line up, wrap him up, and it didn't seem like they were trying to hurt him. It seemed like they were trying to stop him, and that's different to me.
This seemed like necessary roughness.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It is because they don't know who this guy is, why he's smoking. I mean, yeah, it's bright pink, and when you watch it as a video clip, it's sort of ridiculous. But in the moment, somebody comes running in front of you, smoking. Yeah, you're gonna at least knock them down to detain them.
Yeah, no, I think the whole question of the criminality of this or pressing charges and whether there'll be a civil lawsuit that he files for being injured was what Bobby Wagner did proportional to the threat that was posed. And I think it probably was in this case. That's what we look at. Look, if he had tackled him hard and sort of laid him down and beat him, obviously that's too much. You've already diffused the threat. You can't lay a beating on the guy just because you don't like him. But if you're just stopping the person from running across the field because he may pose a danger to other athletes or spectators, I think it's probably okay. And I think this will sort of backfire on the organization. Look, this guy Alex Taylor is an activist. He's trying to raise awareness, so keeping the story in the news by pressing charges.
Thing, and why he said he did it was to draw attention to a trial where two other animal rights activists were facing charges now for stealing pigs from a farm that were going to be slaughtered.
Fine, perfectly noble.
He wants to draw attention
to
that, and he's done that.
Yes, and I think.
But this is maybe the price you pay for that.
I think this is the price you pay. I think he also might be cagey enough to know that this isn't really going anywhere. The guy didn't really hurt me, but this keeps my story in the news for another cycle. Now you are reading deeply on my activist message.
He says he suffered a burn on his arm. From your smoke machine. The thing you did.
Exactly.
Put a shirt on. Don't have a smoke machine.
I think that's right. I think Alex Taylor is probably a little bit cagey enough to know that now everyone is looking at the next level of this, which is my message, which is about raising awareness for these charges from stealing two pigs in 2017.
Yeah.
And so he's getting his story out there in another cycle. I don't think any criminal case, I don't think any civil case will really go anywhere, but kudos to him for carrying a narrative.
His message aside, the thing I think activists who are trying to get attention for these kind of things now, if you do a stunt like this, because the bigger the stunt, like the smoke and all that, the more you're going to get noticed. But you also got to remember, we live in a world now where there are mass shootings and bombings in public events all the time. People are a lot more on edge about that.
Of course.
You are risking a lot of harm.
Absolutely.
To yourself by doing something like that.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, we live in a civilization where everyone's on edge, as you said.
And
so
a public,
you have to be
public
ready.
gathering like that, you don't know what somebody's going to do.
Yeah.
And we all know that now. I think, used to be we lived in a world where you just assume that's not going to happen. And now maybe you still think, well, it's likely not going to happen, but it could.
Right.
And if somebody gives you any reason to think it might happen, you're going to react accordingly.
Let me ask you, is this different? He came out with this smoke bomb, which we didn't know what it was at the time. Obviously, it looked like pink smoke, and he's just trying to sort of, be loud and visible. But what if the person was just streaking, purely naked, a drunk fan, and Bobby Wagner lit them up? I think it'd be a different case.
It's a little bit different.
That's not a threatening person in terms of physical danger. That's a clown who you need to detain, and you need to send security out to wrangle
them. You could also
them.
Still knock them down if you not tackle them, but just when you see the video, they just pushed the guy.
Yeah.
And he was running, so he was a little off balance as he went by anyway, and they were just like, nope.
Yeah. I think it's a closer case. That guy's very strong, and knocking someone down when they're literally just sort of running across the field naked, I think you maybe leave that to security, but this isn't that case. This guy looked like he could potentially pose a threat to
like
people,
I said, watching the video you and knowing the context of it, you can see that. But if you're just a player on the sidelines and somebody smoking, looks like on fire, comes running by you, no.
Pretty rich that he's saying he was burned by the smoke that
yeah,
he brought. But anyway, let's move on. There's a little history lesson in this one. So Meghan Markle is now drawing comparisons to a very famous Time Person of the Year, actually, or back in the 30s and 40s. Yeah, around then. Wallis Simpson. You've heard of Wallis Simpson. Wallis Simpson is who King Edward VIII abdicated the throne of England to fulfill his romance with Wallis Simpson.
Wallis Simpson is, in a broad sense, is kind of why Queen Elizabeth became the queen.
Yes.
Because her husband, the king, gave up the throne to marry her. His brother became the king. George. He died. His daughter, Elizabeth, became queen.
Right. So this was Elizabeth, who just passed away, Queen Elizabeth's uncle, and it is Harry's great
uncle.
grand uncle, however you want to put it.
And Wallis Simpson was an actress.
Yes.
A divorcee. It was very scandalous at the time for the king to date this woman. A lot of simularies to Meghan Markle.
Meghan's a divorcee.
An actress.
Yes. Society has moved enough that her being a divorcee wasn't the motivating factor behind them leaving the royal family. We're much more progressive now, even the royal family.
But it's
But
funny
the
the parallels.
are there.
Yes. So these photos have come out of Meghan Markle wearing an outfit that looks just like Wallis Simpson wore, and it's not just people are like, oh, it's a red blouse and red pants. That's pretty generic.
Yes.
But the style of it, and there's a scarf that's like
It's sort
swooped
of bunched
around her
fabric.
neck.
Yeah.
In the exact same way, and her hair's up in the same way that Wallis Simpson's is.
Look, is this an accident or is this very, very intentional on the part of Meghan Markle? I would say very intentional.
It seems
too
intentional
much.
because most people you think, oh, come on, like Wallis Simpson is a footnote in history, but she's not something that everybody knows, and certainly not I didn't know what outfits Wallis Simpson wore or how she wore her hair.
But Meghan
Markle does because
Yes.
she had to know when you. That's not just like a tabloid thing for her. That's the life she's married into.
Yes.
And Wallis Simpson, it was her husband's grandmother's uncle. Like it's not like it's not like a king from like the 1400s.
Meghan Markle is distinctly aware that her life has echoes of Wallis Simpson.
She's heard that before.
She just is. And she's a very bright woman, and she's aware of the context in which this is not the first time this comparison has been made. This was made when they left the royal family.
And Wallis Simpson's not a completely obscure figure. Like she was on The Crown. There's an actress playing her. She was
a
the King's
person
Speech.
of the year.
Yeah, well, 80 years ago.
Fair
but
enough,
in recent times, in the
Charles
past
Lindbergh
decade,
was too, and he's a big deal.
She's been in media multiple times. She was in an Oscar-winning movie. She's been on The Crown, which is an incredibly watched show. Wallis Simpson's name has come up more in the past 10 years than any time it has probably since the 1930s.
Yes. So now so take me through this. I am assuming, and I think it's a fairly safe assumption, that this was an intentional act by Meghan Markle to,
let's say
echo.
It is. For the sake of argument.
Let's say it is for the sake of argument. What do you make of that? Why do it? Is she trying to inflame matters further? Obviously, the family is in some sort of state of disarray. Even with the passing of the Queen, it's not clear that Harry and William will reconcile. It actually looks like they won't reconcile. Why is she fanning the flames of this? Assuming she is. I don't know if she is.
Because Wallis Simpson, maybe she's trying to say, because like you said, Wallis Simpson being a divorcee and all that isn't as villainized now as it was then. So maybe Meghan's trying to be like, history, don't villainize me because you've forgiven her, forgive me. Maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Like Wallis Simpson's image has sort of been rehabbed a little bit over the years. So maybe she's like, think about me now the way you probably will in 80 years.
Yes. Now she needs some time because Wallis Simpson and the former King Edward stayed together. Like that was sort of the story that got lost. Was he leaving for a whirlwind romance with an American actress? But they ended up having a long and stable marriage.
Watch those comparisons. Wasn't Edward like sort of a Nazi sympathizer?
Yeah, he had some. He had some tough sort of rumors that swirled around him.
There's some other problems there with Edward, but.
Yeah, I think that's a favorable read of what Meghan is doing.
That's the favorable read.
Yes. I also think somewhat she's part of this larger project. Part of what Meghan seems to be wanting to do is to drag the royal family, kicking and screaming sometimes, into the 21st century. And she's sort of, in a way, we've talked a lot about provocation with what Kanye is doing. I think she's more thoughtful about her provocation. I think she is deliberately doing this, but it's a way to sort of confront these issues. The royal family has a checkered history, as you said.
They have a checkered present.
A checkered present. They're very traditional, and traditions don't change quickly over time. They actually, very incrementally have moved towards modernity. And she's saying, look,
and lots
I'm
of things about Meghan
married
Markle,
a white prince. You got to deal with that. I'm kind of like Wallis Simpson. I was a divorcee. She's thrusting a lot of that in their face.
She's not British.
She's not British.
Lots
She's an
of
American.
Things that could be upsetting to them, and just the tradition of it. And maybe that is her
her project.
Like Wallis Simpson. I famously am changing the whole outlook of what the royal family is and can be.
Yeah, and some people think that's great, and some people are turned off by her, and it's just
trolling to them.
It seems like trolling to some people. Yeah. So anyway, we'll have to see. But I found this sort of like pretty shocking that she went sort of directly into Wallis Simpson.
It was very specific. Halloween coming up.
Fun story.
I love this. So a family in Illinois had a Stranger Things display in their front yard that is very elaborate and very impressive.
Yes.
And some
it's
neighbors
really
complained.
a Stranger Thing this past season. It's a reference
it's the
to
current
this most
season.
recent season.
And some neighbors complained. They took it down. Now they are putting it back up, although I'm hearing they're only going to do it on the weekends and not during the week because too many people are coming to see it because it's that impressive.
This is some David Copperfield stuff.
It is.
It's incredible.
So spoiler for Stranger Things, the current season, if you haven't watched it. The character Max on the show, the redheaded girl, So there's a scene where famously she's in a graveyard and she gets possessed by this demon and she starts floating up into the air and just suspends in the air.
Yes.
They have Max floating in their front yard, and there's a
A
video.
life-size sort of dummy with red
it's really
hair.
creepy looking,
Yeah.
and they walk underneath it, and you see it's not on a pole.
Yes. And it's also moving laterally, so it's
A
not
little
on
bit, and it's not on a string because there's nothing above it.
blue sky above.
How is this thing floating in their yard? And they are not saying how they're doing it, but people are coming from far and wide to see this. I think one
The
of the
only
neighbors.
conclusion is magic.
It's magic.
There's no drones. It's not like there's a sort of drones on the side of her that are lifting her up. You don't hear anything. It's
These people
eerie.
must be some sort of magician, this family. Literally, like they must know how it works. You know the thing like when a magician makes somebody levitate and they move the metal rings over them to show there's no wires? It's kind of like that. One of the things the
I
neighbors
haven't been
complained
this
about.
sort of surprised since David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Yeah, it's like,
It's
how are you
remarkable.
doing this?
Yeah.
And also, I've read that during the day, they have like the graveyard scene set up in the yard because they have a lot of things. They have Vecna's weird grandfather clocks and all kinds of creepy stuff. But they have Max sitting in a graveyard during the day, and then she floats up it, and they have her floating at night.
It's so good, and it's so eerie too because it's from behind, and the scene is it's literally a recreation of Stranger Things when Vecna lifts her up. It's a very powerful scene. That's where the Kate Bush song.
That's why
is
Running Up
played
That
and
Hill's
so
become
forth,
such a hit.
later than that. So it's very, very iconic, and it's unclear to me how it's done. It is just
Well,
magic.
that's
It's
what's
perfect for Halloween.
Interesting is usually when you see a story about somebody doing something for Halloween and their neighbors complain, it's because it's too gory or it's too violent. That's not the case with this. It's the problem with Neighbors is it's too good.
Yeah.
So a neighbor complained that people are parking in her driveway and trampling across her lawn to come look at this.
Yeah, and try to feel underneath
Because
it.
everybody
and so
wants
forth.
to see it. So
It's the coolest thing. We have a lot of Halloween houses in our neighborhood. Nothing. We have the giant skeletons. Those are always fun to
Yeah.
see. But this makes me want to go to Illinois and see
you gotta
this thing.
do some actual like magic tricks now.
It's remarkable. All right. Last story of the day. Let's move
Your
on
favorite.
to my favorite story of the day. So the chess grandmaster, Hans Niemann. Remember that name?
Yes.
He's a big name because he was accused of cheating in a tournament in St. Louis and beating Magnus Carlsen, who is the world-renowned greatest chess player on earth at present and maybe ever. Well, when he beat him, there was some swirling
Like this is like you
controversy.
beating LeBron James in one-on-one.
It really is. It really is. I mean,
Kind
this is a 19-year-old kid. He is a chess grandmaster. He's very good at chess,
Yeah.
but he beat LeBron. Okay.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of rumors swirling that he cheated. And the way that people thought he might have cheated is that he put some sort of device into anal beads, put them into his rectum, and then would have signals sent to him about the appropriate move. Now, chess behind a computer can beat a human playing chess. It just has more computational sort of,
Yeah,
it can compute
it's a computer.
more. It's a computer, okay, than any human brain. So this would be an effective way to beat someone.
Hans Niemann had admitted to cheating in the past.
That's right. He had been kicked out of tournaments in the past, so there was a lot of smoke there.
But there was smoke coming out of where? But they never found it. This was never proven. This was just a theory.
That's right. And
he's denied it.
He denied it. He said, "Look, I didn't cheat. You're just saying this because little old me, 19-year-old chess grandmaster, beat the greatest in the world, and you're unwilling to accept it. So you're finding a reason to call me a cheater." Well, there's another tournament, and
He's
we have
played
video. After 9/11, airport security changed
You're
quite a
equating
bit.
this to 9/11 now.
It
Okay.
feels like these are the changes that come in because he's standing in line and everyone is being scanned. The person in front of him is being scanned by a wand on their front. When Hans Niemann comes up,
Where did they scan?
take a look at where they scan him.
And that is an interesting scanner. I gotta ask him about it. Looks like it's got all kinds of impressive settings.
Yes, and we also can see now on our screens Hans Niemann. Everybody is checked carefully.
The chief arbiter for the
For
ladies,
women.
yes.
Section.
Right. And
Arena.
Arena is like, come on, come on. Let's get going.
And you
here.
see there's somebody else.
So it's remarkable. The visual is incredible because Hans turns around and the wand goes right past his butt.
His butt.
I say butt in my house. 'cause I
Yeah,
have little
you're the
kids.
father of small children. And you are a small child yourself. Yeah, he got the backside scan,
He gets the backside scan.
and
This
nothing
is good
happens.
for chess. The
Yeah.
integrity of chess matters, and this is a small price to pay.
But don't you kind of wish as they're waving his backside, it just goes whoop, whoop.
I really did want to hear like, and then someone to get a rubber glove and be like, it's time for a
Yeah.
cavity search. So great story. Look, it does seem to scan clean. So whatever the results of this tournament, Hans Niemann will have earned them. I don't think he is, sort of bringing in anything, at least in his butt. But
Unless
he's
they're
always-
plastic, right?
Unless they're plastic. I guess that's right. I didn't even think of that. No, your
I don't
brain
know.
always goes to like Magneto. How did Magneto get around
Yeah,
the
no.
plastic prison? You got to
Yeah.
figure out new and exciting ways. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll end on anal beads.
All right. That's a good place to end, I
See you
guess.
guys on
it's
Friday.
a happy ending.
Take care.